May I have your attention, please? Would you please be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency, Professor the Honourable Margaret Gardner, Governor of Victoria.
Please be seated. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Government House and its grounds sit, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of any other communities who may be here today. Your Excellency, I invite you to present the honours and awards in the Order of Australia. To be an officer in the General Division, Dr. Hugh Kirkman, for distinguished service to conservation and to the protection, management and sustainability of seagrasses and marine ecosystems. To be members in the General Division, the late the Honourable Kevin James Andrews, to be received by his son, Benjamin David Andrews, in recognition of his significant service to the people and Parliament of Australia, to the Catholic Church and to the community. Professor Lauren Ayton, for significant service to optometry and to ophthalmology and to public health as a clinician and researcher. Professor Kim Bennell, for significant service to medical research and education, particularly in the field of health and rehabilitation science. David John Briggs, for significant service to the performing arts as a guitarist, songwriter and producer. Ross Matthews Brown, for significant service to the winemaking industry and to tourism. Anne Coughlin, for significant service to the legal profession and to judicial administration. Dr. Christine Helen Craik, for significant service to the community as a social worker, to tertiary education, and as a volunteer. Dr. Ross Stanley Cutler, for significant service to veterinary medicine and to the pork industry. Margaret Beth Donnan, for significant service to occupational hygiene, chemical engineering, and to professional associations. Jeffrey Lane Flood, for significant service to the community through a range of executive roles. Jodie May Goldsworthy, for significant service to primary industry, particularly the honeybee and pollination sector. The late Emeritus Professor Joseph Henry Graffam, to be received by his partner, Alison Joy Shinkfield, in recognition of his significant service to tertiary education and to social welfare organisations. Gay Lorraine Hamilton, for significant service to tertiary education and to the community. Dr. Jessie Helen Harmon, for significant service to social change leadership and to the community of regional Victoria. Dr. Vera Ignatovic, for significant service to medical science in pediatric disorders and proteomics, to promotion of STEM to underrepresented populations, and as a mentor. Janet Elizabeth Jackson, for significant service to lacrosse as an official and administrator. David Charles Olson, for significant service to the Australia-China business relations and to the law. Emeritus Professor John Dennis Walk, for significant service to medicine, particularly endocrinology, as a clinician, educator, and mentor. To receive the Bravery Medal, Rodney Maxwell Patterson, for his considerable bravery during the restraint of an armed offender in Melbourne, Victoria, on the 9th of November 2018. Sergeant Luke Samuel Schroeder, for his considerable bravery during the attempted rescue of a woman from a house fire in Monbulk, Victoria, on the 28th of July 2020. In recognition of their considerable bravery during the rescue of a man from rough seas in Port Campbell, Victoria, on the 21st of April 2019, the late Ross William Powell, to be received by his wife, Mary Powell. The late Andrew Francis Powell, to be received by his daughter, Frances Powell, and his partner, Amber Griffiths. To receive the Public Service Medal, Rina De Francesco, for outstanding public service in organisational reform to better respond to sexual and family violence and support gender equality. Lisa Marie Jackson, for outstanding public service in emergency management. Mark Johnston, for outstanding public service in financial policy and economic reform. Anne Frances McFall, for outstanding public service in support of Australia's higher education sector. Donna Michelle Ross, for outstanding public service to public administration in the Australian Taxation Office and the wider Australian public sector, in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic. Kirsty Savage, for outstanding public service to the Aboriginal community and delivery of projects. Dr. Paul Bernard Thornton-Smith, for outstanding public service in electoral research and legislation. Sharon Marie Williams, for outstanding public service in the agricultural sector and supporting Victoria's rural regions. Luke Cameron Wilson, for outstanding public service in the advocacy and support of regional communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. To receive the Australian Police Medal for Distinguished Police Service, the late Senior Sergeant James Thomas Egan, to be received by his wife, Janine Robin Egan. Superintendent Kelvin John Gale. Detective Senior Sergeant Tracy Elizabeth Meyer. Senior Sergeant Rodney James Monroe. Detective Inspector Anthony Philip Wheatfill. To receive the Australian Corrections Medal for Distinguished Corrections Service, Rebecca Trudy Lynette. Mark Thomas Nestor. Tanya Angela Zita. To receive the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division, Dr. Wally Armour, for service to medicine, particularly cardiology. The late Associate Professor Philip James Ayres, to be received by his son Julian Ayres, in recognition of his service to literature and to education. Janice Lorraine Ballard, to be received by her daughter Sue Gilliaran, for service to the community of Dimboola. Anita Bajarano, for service to the Jewish community through a range of roles. Gulgoti Beeson, for service to the Afghan community of Victoria. David John Blackmore, for service to the beef cattle industry. Gwendolyn Blandthorne, for service to the community of Matoa. Roger Maxwell Blythman, for service to the community and to the church. Patrick Gerard Boland, for service to the manufacturing industry. Patrick John McCluskey, for service to the manufacturing industry. Elizabeth Ann Benetti for service to music. Ray Joy Bonney for service to community health. Deborah Lee Boucher for service to the arts and to the community of Horsham. Hannah Brennan for service to the multicultural community of Melbourne. Grace Loden Brown for service to sport as a gold medalist at the Paris Olympic Games 2024. Dr. Wendy Christina Bunston for service to social welfare research. Pauline Joan Klein for service to the community of the Bellarine region. Jeffrey Michael Collinson for service to cricket. Jack Thomas Cooper for service to the community through a range of volunteer roles. Jeffrey Ballantyne Davidson for service to the community of Upper Beaconsfield. Jane Louise Dicketts for service to community health and to nursing. William Joseph Dobell for service to veterans and their families. Barbara Wendy Dodd for service to the community of Ensay. Vivian Freed for service to the community, particularly through charitable organisations. Dr. Margaret Ann Gard for service to medicine, particularly through education. John Eric Head, for service to the arts and the community of Shepperton. Neil Harold Heatley, for service to the community of Northern Melbourne. Wayne John Hinton, for service to Australian rules football as an umpire. Irene Tomai Kalinski, for service to the Jewish community of Melbourne. Dr. Jana Katarinskia, for service to social welfare. Associate Professor Zulaya Keskin, for service to the Islamic community of Australia. Stephen Allen Kipp, for service to the construction industry. Ayshagal Koksuz, for service to the Turkish community of Victoria through volunteer roles. John William Lloyd, for service to the community of Sherbrooke. Selba Mitenderi Luka, for service to the African community of Victoria. To receive the Medal of the Order of Australia in the Military Division, Major Joanne Michelle Downs, for meritorious service to leadership and training as the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Army Logistic Training Centre 13th Brigade and the 3rd Combat Service Support Battalion. To receive the Commendation for Brave Conduct, Julianne Allen, for her actions during an assault at a youth justice centre in Malmesbury, Victoria, on the 3rd of October 2019. Mariano Frank Catena, for his actions during the rescue of a woman from a burning house in Northcote, Victoria, on the 16th of September 2021. Shane David Hudson, for his actions during the attempted rescue of 3 people from rough seas in Bushrangers Bay, Victoria, on the 13th of January 2021. For their actions during the rescue of 2 men from a burning house in Plenty, Victoria, on the 13th of June 2020, David Wilfred Harrison. Dean Tustin. Please join Her Excellency in congratulating all today's recipients. Your Excellency, I now invite you to address us.
The Honourable Anthony Carbines, representing the Premier, Jeremy Moule, Secretary, Department of Premier and Cabinet, and senior members of the Victorian Public Service, Bridget Monagle, Commissioner, Victorian Public Sector Commission, Rick Nugent, Acting Chief Commissioner, Victoria Police, Melissa Weston, representing the Commissioner, Corrections Victoria, Gavin Freeman, Commissioner, Fire Rescue Victoria, Ross Coyle, representing the Chair, Country Fire Authority, Major General Jason Blaine, Senior Army Officer of Victoria, Captain Ben Favell, Senior Naval Officer of Victoria, Trevor Clark, OAM, Deputy Chair, Order of Australia Association, Victoria Branch, Coralie Lever, Victoria President, Australian Bravery Association, distinguished guests, one and all. Let me begin by acknowledging that we meet on the lands of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nations and pay my respects to their elders past and present and recognise any other Aboriginal elders in the room with us today. Well, this is an important ceremony this year for a range of reasons. 1975, which not everyone in the room can remember, but most of you, 1975 was an important time in the formation of Australia's modern identity. It was a year of political and cultural transformation with significant events at home and abroad. Full-time colour television broadcasting, which I think was very important for a lot of people, was launched, just as the groundbreaking Picnic at Hanging Rock was released, as well as, and we remember this in Melbourne, AC/DC's first studio album. These moments arrived as powerful social movements gained momentum. From Vietnam moratorium marches to women's liberation, queer identity and land rights for Australia's First Peoples, liberties and fairness were placed at the forefront of our national consciousness by those movements. This country and this state were markedly different places back then in 1975, but there was a distinct sense of what we were becoming and what we could be. It was within this context that the Australian honours system, which you have just seen before you today, was inaugurated by Queen Elizabeth II on the 14th of February 1975. The replacement of the British honours system by our Australian honours was part of a journey towards defining our nation in ways that were and are our own. As we strove towards cultural independence, it became essential that those Australians who deserved recognition should be clearly honoured by their community of Australians, by their system of honours. Yet this shift did not happen as quickly as you might think, if you think there's a date, that it was inaugurated in 1975. In the first year of Australian Honours, in that first year, only 15 Victorians were invested. And it is fair to say that there were a number of Australians who were dismayed by the replacement of British honours with Australian honours. The establishment of an Australian honours system was then not a definitive cultural marker at a particular moment. It depended on being truly embraced by the whole community. We all had to embrace our honours and our system. And it did take a little time for Australians and Victorians to actually fully embrace the value of honouring their own and recognising the full breadth of contributions in our nation and doing it ourselves. Slowly but surely, local communities across each corner of this state began to nominate those that had dedicated themselves to the betterment of their regions, their professions, their organisations, their community. Soon the 15 Victorians who were honoured in that first year grew into 50, then 100, and eventually into the numbers we see today, which are commensurate with the scale of our population and the scale of the numbers of people that need to be recognised. Each person that's received recognition over the past 5 decades then is part of a greater story in Australia, a story that has been part of us collectively defining our national identity. The contributions that have been honoured go to the heart of what we value as a community, as a state, and as a nation. No two people who walk this carpet today have shared exactly the same journey, but all those who walk this carpet are united by a common thread, the profound and lasting impact that you have had, or those that we have honoured because of their past service who are no longer with us. We are honouring countless people across our nation each time we honour the few who have been selected for the very things that we deem are of value. And you have seen that full range here today. And we see everything today. We see the long journey of countless acts of volunteering. We see the long journey of people who are changing the state, their region, their organisations, their professions, who are making new ways for people who come behind them, whether that's through new ideas or the new ways they've chosen to do things. And we've seen people who've given the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of others in our community. It's both joyful and sobering to think of what the people we honour here today have done. So what is true today about what we are valuing and what we are honouring was something that people could see in 1975 was important. And we hope that what we honour and value and celebrate here today continues for decades to come. So reflecting on the evolution of our honours system, because as you've gathered, this is the 50th anniversary of the Australian honours system, it's important to remember that while we honour every single individual here, and those individual contributions are remarkably important, it's not which award was received or by whom at its foundation, but that we can see the range of contributions and achievements that these people represent to us, the whole Victorian and Australian community, and represent on our behalf to the generations to come. I want to express my gratitude not only to those who've been invested today, but also to the families and friends who are here in the room and those who are not here who actually supported them in their journey. So I thank all of you, and I wish that you recognise that it was right, that we recognise how we should celebrate our own. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you are able to do so, would you please stand and join in the singing of the first verse of the national anthem and remain standing for the departure of the Governor. Thank you.
That concludes official proceedings for today. On behalf of all of us at Government House, we congratulate all award recipients. The State Apartments will now be open for your viewing. On behalf of the Governor, we invite you to stay and to enjoy the hospitality of Government House. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.